We're standing in a bridge full of graffiti because we're still in Pensacola, and my job on the Kaiser Report is to look for interesting locations and to make sure everybody knows this is KR 1012.
Wow, very well done. Excellently done. Fantastic.
So, you know, that was a segue into our headlines about jobs, because jobs is in the news. Not Steve Jobs, but jobs, like working, labor. It's in the news in this U.S. election that we just had, and many people voted for Trump because they don't have jobs. And the first headline, however, is going to go to Japan, the infamous Japanese worker working all sorts of hours, sleeping on the train, falling asleep at the bar, at the karaoke bar. Well, economy pays tab for Japan Incorporated's free lunch on overtime. So since Shinzo Abe took office in late 2012, recurring profits in Japan for Japan Incorporated have gone up 62.3%, but staff compensation has grown a miserly 2.1%. Household spending has risen just 1.6% during the same period.
Well, what does this tell us?
This tells us that, just like in the U.S., these corporations are reaping all the profits of 0% interest rates, of endless money printing, of quantitative easing, which we've had in Japan for decades. Now we have in the U.S. for about 10 years, Europe for about 10 years. They are reaping the profits, but they're not paying their workers. And because of that, we are in a global stasis of the economy. Let's write that down.
All right.
Stasis.
Stasis. Really?
Stasis.
Oh, you're very good at spelling. You could, although that would disqualify you to be president of the United States. Apparently, you need to be a bad speller.
So Abe has been pleading with businesses to please, 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 please pay your workers for the overtime. They, in fact, passed laws that you actually have to pay their workers for overtime. But the average worker is working like 22 hours a month overtime without any pay. And what Abe's pleas for businesses to put up wages to kickstart the economy have largely fallen on deaf ears. But if the results for the union survey are extrapolated nationwide, just paying employees for the hours they work could push up consumer spending by 13.4%, according to Reuters calculations. So that you have an economy where it won't grow, where they can't create inflation, simply because corporations, Japan Incorporated, is eating the free lunch of 0% interest rates and free profits, but they're not sharing it with their workers, and nobody can get them to share it with their workers.
Well, you don't need workers. As we pointed out, you know, a lot over the various episodes, that in an economy run by central bankers, those who are controlling the means of production, that is to say, interest rate policy and money printing, don't need workers. So therefore, they're expendable. They just print themselves more money, and then they go buy overpriced assets like Modigliani's or various French artwork or a chateau in Switzerland. And the workers are expendable. They're unneeded. They're not part of the economy anymore. They've been algebraically, mathematically, financial engineeringly eliminated from the equation. So what's happening in Japan, of course, is the mothership for monetary mayhem, and it's the bulwark against all efforts. I mean, this is what Trump is hopefully going to reverse, is that he's going to bring wages back into the economic formula. So wages have been eliminated. I think his idea is to bring wages back.
Well, in fact, I have another graffiti art for this, because what you're saying is hours worked plus no income equals the big D, depression, deflation, and that's what we're seeing. We continue to see in Japan, and that is, in an era of weak global demand and uncertainty about economic prospects, Japanese companies have been hoarding cash rather than sharing it with the workforce. So you have hoarding cash in Japan, in Japanese corporations, in European corporations, and American corporations, and the only people having any sort of income growth have been the Chinese, but the Chinese worker, of course, also hoards their cash because they have no social welfare system there, so they need to make sure that they're protected should things go horribly wrong.
Hey, that's right. So hoarding cash has been the way to go for corporations for many years now. But hopefully this will be a big reversal. I think rising interest rates will turning the tables.
In fact, you know, as Max had said in a previous episode, this is the oldest town in America, in fact. And, you know, they used to run on rocks. So here we have all these rocks. This was a famous guy who lived under this bridge, and he hoarded all his rocks under this bridge.
Who ran on rocks?
I'm just making up a story. It's a fake story because this is graffiti. It's about art. It's about telling stories through your tag. And the tag is here. This guy lived under this bridge a couple hundred years ago and hoarded all his rocks, and then the economy collapsed. So Pensacola did not become the #1 city in America, even though it was the first city. So staying on the story.
I understand that.
Well, let's see in the comment section if anybody else understands.
No, I mean, if it was a troll living under a bridge, I could see the relevancy to the troll-orama that we live in the global dystopia of freelance commenters making uninformed comments about what?
It's also, as you mentioned, trolls. These corporations hoarding their cash are like a troll under the bridge of the global economy. They're hoarding their cash.
They're the ultimate trolls.
Yes!
Yes, corporate trolls hoarding their cash and throwing rocks at the people trying to do business, entrepreneurs like Royal Bank of Scotland, it turns out, in the UK. They did everything possible to discourage entrepreneurialism by essentially pilfering from anyone who tried to start a business using their facilities, and they became this enormous troll in the way of entrepreneurialism in the UK. And I think they're all being made knights now. I think the Queen is out there, got the knee pads out.
Okay, I have actually graffiti for RBS, and that is RBS. BS.
Oh,
See?
that's good.
You get it? You get it? Get it? Anyway, so let's talk about the U.S. economy, because there was an episode of CNN where they tried to be as cool as a Kai's report, and they just did not get it. CNN's host's attempt to explain the U.S. economy was so bad, I started yelling at the TV. And Poppy Harlow, that's a name.
Poppy Harlow? That's an actual name of a person?
Yes, apparently that is the name. Yes, apparently that is the name of the woman who was interviewing John Feltner, the United Steelworkers vice president of the Vevinard local union, where 300 jobs are moving to Mexico. And she asked him, well, Donald Trump says he's going to save your jobs, but isn't it really a matter of automation and technology? And he responded, these companies are leaving to exploit cheap labor. That's plain and simple. If Trump can change those trade policies to keep jobs here in America, that's what we need. We need American jobs, not just union jobs. So the person saying that they were screaming at the television used Germany as an example of a country which has very advanced technology and yet still keeps their jobs.
Right. Now they're trying to explain economics to the average person now that economics has become the focal point for how to rebuild the economy under a Trump administration. And they have lost all anchors because they've been listening to guys like Paul Krugman for the past 10 or 15 years, who's all about academic theories and has no practical feet on the ground economic experience whatsoever. So they are lost.
And yet, so this company, CNN, that tries to be as cool as Kai's report and can't figure it out and doesn't get it. Here he talks about the guy investigating this. Instead of regurgitating meaningless economic platitudes, newscasters and pundits should confront some facts about Germany's extensive manufacturing sector. So fact one, of course, is, as I said, they have one of the most advanced technology in the world in terms of manufacturing. Number two, manufacturing workers in Germany earn much more than their U.S. counterparts, 44.7% more in textiles, 44.6% more in chemicals, 34.2% more in machine tools, and 66.9% more in the automobile industry. So the fact is that there does exist a contradiction. Germany is trolling CNN. They're trolling by existing under the economic bridge called globalism.
Look, there's a concept in business called benchmarking, and this company like General Electric or other large corporations, they'll look at their competitors and they'll benchmark against their best practices, and they will adopt those practices internally. And now I think with Trump, he'll say, look, let's look at Germany, let's look at Japan, let's look at France, let's look at South America, let's look at everywhere we can. We'll take the best and leave the rest, and we'll create an amalgam of the best practices of countries around the world, with tax policies from here, healthcare system from there, defense contracting initiatives from here. Let's create the best of the best.
Exactly. So we had talked about that in a previous episode where we talked about, the healthcare system is better in Europe because they can negotiate prices. Trump brought that up. And here they say manufacturing jobs make up 22% of German workforce and account for 21% of GDP. And here in the U.S., it's 11% of the workforce is in manufacturing, and it's 13% of our GDP. So, again, manufacturing is wealth creation. We don't have wealth creation. What Les Leopold in this article cites is that basically we have stock buybacks, which is the corporate CEOs, the corporate class, trolling under the workers, of undermining the economy of the United States.
Well, we've had financial engineering that has allowed for money to flow into the pockets of the tippity top of the social crust and bypass wages.